We will create a workflow that will generate invoices and then automatically email those generated invoices to your clients. And this flow will go through an invoice generator. So say you have a service business or any type of business, we can go ahead and add client information in a form, and then we'll go through the flow so that at the end they get an email with the invoice. So the workflow is, if we have client information in a Google Sheet, we can create a submission where we take the information from the Google Sheet, submit it into the submission form, and then that'll auto-generate an email for us that includes an invoice to the client. So the first thing we want to do is set up the trigger, which will be a submission form. So this is information that we will take from our sheet. So for example, if we have the client information, how much was billed, how many hours we worked. So in this hypothetical, there is a landscaping company, and we do landscaping and waste because we remove trees. And so the form elements here, these are the ones that we want to pull from our Google Sheet. So what I capture is the following information. So the name, the email, the address, today's date. Note here you can do dates because I have them in date form in my sheet. We can have the due date of the invoice. Then I also have the description of the services. I have the amount of hours worked on that service, and then I also have the rate. In addition to landscaping, there is waste removal. So this would be a description of services for the waste portion of the business. This would be how much labor was used for this part. I also have the hourly rate, and then the amount, and then combining the two services. So the landscaping and waste for the grand total. So just a quick double check here. We are, see, it's always good to double check your work. We have to add this. So this is a grand total of hours worked for the labor portion of the business, so the landscaping. So we have the labor description, labor hours, the labor rate, and the labor amount. And then we also have the grand total. So if we execute this step, we will fill in the form. Again, this is coming from the Google Sheet that you have on your clients. So you just make sure you're copying the exact information that you have on the sheet. That's important to note. So we'll go ahead and fill this information in. Let's do on Monday. Landscaping, we did 25 hours, $20 an hour. Is that 500? We had to remove a tree. That was 10 hours, it's $20 rate, it was 200, and the grand total is 700. This is being pulled from the Google Sheet. We have that submitted, and now we can see here that we have an output. So schema table JSON, we can come out, we can add another node, we can do Google Sheets, update row and sheet, and my Google Sheets account is connected. We see we have our input to the Google Sheets now. We have the connection here, landscaping invoice, pulling from the sheet. It's fetching the columns, and here we are. We'll match to email because that is unique. And now we just want to go ahead and drop in all the information. So you can pull from JSON, table, schema, whatever you're comfortable with. Now that we pulled in all the information, we can go ahead and execute the step. And we have the information here. I like to add the wait node just to give, before continuing on, just to give it a second to draw the information from the sheet. So we can add a second. And now we can also add another sheet to get rows. Now in here, we have the Google account connected. We will pull from the invoice. We will pull the sheet. We can add a filter here, and we will do the email. So we can execute the previous nodes. We can drop in the email. And now we can move on. We can go ahead and add Google Drive. So go to Google Drive, copy a file. I have an invoice template connected to my Google Drive right here. And we can call this invoice, wow, can't type. So if we execute the previous nodes, we can dynamically put the name of the client. So invoice for John. One thing to note here is you see in quotation marks, it's a string. Here, these are coming over as numbers, right? Because they don't have the quotation marks. So now that we completed that, we can go ahead and add a set node. And for this, if we look back, we have strings and we have numbers. We want to convert these to strings. So we can go ahead and pass through all the information. Again, you can just drag and drop from schema table, JSON, whatever you're comfortable with. Today's date, due date, labor description, labor hours, labor rate, amount, waste description. Whoops. Okay, now that we dragged everything over, we can execute the step. And now we can see, so they are no longer green and they have the quotation marks around them. So we've converted these from numbers to strings here, as you can see. So now we can come back out and go ahead and add a Google Docs node. So we can do update document. And for the URL ID, we can go back to copy file and we have the ID here. Just drag and drop this in. And for action, we want to find and replace text. We're doing this because of the way I have my invoice set up. So it'll go through the Google Docs, it'll find some of the information on the invoice, and we can swap it out. So I'll show you my invoice right now. This is my Leave It to Us LLC invoice, and you can see I hard-coded some of the information here. So what this basically does is allow us to pull over inputs in N8N and dynamically update this invoice as we send it out, which I'll show you how to do in N8N right now. So here in N8N, we can make sure we're on edit fields here, and we just want to click find and replace for the text. So we'll take name. This will dynamically pull in the name. So what we would fill in old text here is if we just go to the invoice, we would just take the name and it will find and replace this in the document. And then we can go ahead and add another action. And again, we'll do find and replace. And now we can scroll back over. We can take the address, scroll back. We can pull in the address, and we'll do that for all of the information here. We have completed the find and replace for all of the documentation, and now we can add a drive node. And it will be download a file. We can just do from the list here, we can just take the ID. And now we want to send a message. So if we do Gmail, we can do send a message, add the credentialing here. So I'll add that. I'll just do, for demo purposes, I'll do a draft to my own email. So we can do draft create invoice for Leave It to Us is the subject. Here's the text. And now we can add a message. So it will be hello, and then again, we can dynamically add names. So if we come back to edit fields, we can do the name of the client. And if we just drop this down, we can now see more text. Thank you for choosing Leave It to Us LLC. It was a pleasure doing your landscaping. Attached is the invoice for our services. Please let us know if you have any questions. Regards, Fit. Okay, and now if we want to add an attachment, we just come back to our downloaded file. It's just called data. So we can just come in here, we can do the expression, or we can just do fixed and just call it data. So we can execute the step, and I'll check my email right now. Here in the draft inbox in my Gmail, you can see we have the invoice that we just created, dynamically pulled in John's name, and it also attached the invoice that we created for John. So we can just QC this and send it off to John. We took a form submission based on some of the work that we were doing, and we were able to put it in a copy of an invoice template and dynamically fill in the invoice template, generate an email, and add that attachment to the email in a draft. So can you imagine the time that you save just QCing the emails, or if they're automatically sent off, you can just get so much time back. So congratulations on the automation, and I'll see you in the next one.